Hi everyone, welcome to the Spinnaker and Germain Software's webinar, Managing Challenges in Your JDA Environment. All lines have been placed on a listen-only mode, and the floor will be open for questions and comments following the presentation. If you would like to submit a question at any time during the webinar, you may use the chat box located on the lower left-hand side of your screen. Simply type your message into the box and click the Enter button. If you should require assistance throughout the conference, please press *0 on your telephone keypad to reach a live operator. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to your host, Mr. Paul Adamson. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Wally, and welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I appreciate each of you making time to join. Today's webinar will focus on best practices and methods for managing your JDA environment. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to submit questions as we go, and we'll address them at the end of the topic. Additionally, Grant Goldberg from Spinnaker will follow up with each of you over the coming week to get feedback on the webinar. Without further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters, Ken Poire and Yannick Germain. Ken is a Director of Consulting for Spinnaker and a supply chain professional with over 16 years of design, implementation, and performance engineering experience. Ken brings a broad knowledge of sophisticated supply chain planning tools, including JDA, that provides him with a unique perspective to manage and deliver complex SCM solutions. We're also pleased to have Yannick Germain join us today. Yannick's the founder and CEO of Germain Software and a recognized high-tech professional with a background in software development, systems performance, and scalability engineering. Throughout his career, Yannick has focused on performance tuning and scaling enterprise-level applications. Let's get this kicked off. It's my pleasure to turn this over to Ken Poire. Ken, good day, and the audience is yours.
Thank you, Paul, for kicking us off. Let's go ahead and jump right in. For those not familiar with JDA, it's an advanced planning solution. It's used across multiple industries, retail, CPG. It's even been used beyond traditional supply chain planning to do reverse logistics and return management. What separates it from other planning tools out there is the ability to be time-phased and do multi-echelon planning. Underlying this suite of technology, underlying this software suite is a diverse technology stack. Here we have listed, Windows, Unix, Apache, C++. So very complex technology stack used to implement the software solution. Here in the architecture overview, showing the JDA has a tiered architecture. The web tier, application tier, database, and SRE tier, process execution tier. This tiered structure allows the JDA software to run, not only can run on just a simple laptop, the entire software can run as little as one physical laptop, or it can run on numerous machines to handle the scales of your supply chain. So whether it's small or it's some of the largest in the world, the U.S. military or Walmart, the software can scale. So here we have an example of the physical servers, and again, it can scale there. And not only can it scale because of the tiers, each tier can scale. So in particular here we have the, let's draw a little picture. Application server tier, we can actually scale that larger by clustering. We can create different nodes. So out of the box, JDA will install one node. By clustering, you can add more than one. And typically a node will handle about 50 users. So the software can scale even inside of a tier. So beyond just the JDA application, the ability for it to scale in its technology stack, JDA is just normally one part of a supply chain system. So here I'm showing JDA connecting to an ERP system, connecting to transport management, a reporting system, warehouse management. And these connections are more than just data processing. They have to be in sync. Transformation, timing. I'm sure plenty of technology professionals on the call have heard, well, the data from this system doesn't match that system. And normally, it's either a transformational problem or a timing. Well, that data syncs up. It's a day later that it gets to the other system. And this coordination of systems requires multiple teams supporting different applications, multiple software vendors. And again, beyond just the technology stack that we discussed with JDA, each of the systems, ERP, transportation management, has its own technology stack. So trying to coordinate that and having one, like I like to call a technology ecosystem working, or a supply chain ecosystem. So common challenges. When I've gone to JDA clients in the past 16 years, these are the common things that I find. The ability of teamwork to navigate these systems in the supply chain to find the root cause. Too often when I go into places, well, what's the problem? I normally have one application team pointing the fingers at the other application team. Oh, the on-hand data is all in that system versus another. I also see systems, supply chain systems, unable to adjust when the business changes in terms of data volume. So let's say a new brand was to come out for your company. The supply chain systems cannot handle that volume or react negatively to it. And I also see the third common thing I commonly see is the ability to anticipate problems before they happen in the supply chain. So normally we find out the disk space runs out by the time the system crashes, not beforehand. So these are common problems that I've run into in 16 years of going in the field and doing this. But not only do you have the complexity of the technology stack and then linking JDA to other systems to build your supply chain footprint, over time, your business evolves. The business adds new modules. Processes change. What was common practice 3 years ago is no longer the practice. An example of that might be network. 3 years ago, your company may have had a dynamic network. You opened 2 new warehouses, and now you're in a stability phase, and you're not opening as many warehouses, for instance. Your technology needs to match that. So your system, I always look at the JDA and your other systems trying to match what the business wants to do. It needs to evolve with your business team. And the way I look at it too often that I see is the business moves forward with new business processes and techniques and things they want to accomplish, and the software stays stuck in time 3 years ago. The software was optimized for a dynamic network, and, well, there's no longer a dynamic network. And from a just pure technical perspective, what does that mean the business evolves? Well, data volumes change. Data that used to be very relevant to the business is not so relevant anymore. So why are we storing it? Why are we doing calculations against it? Or the calculations of planning horizons change due to new techniques wanting to be used by the business. So we've discussed the JDA technology, where it fits in with other supply chain systems, the challenges that supply chain professionals face in supporting these systems. What if your system evolve with your business needs? Not have the data, not have the system, especially JDA system, sensitive to data volume growth, where it can adjust to the, with changes that are being proposed. You can predict with a high degree of performance. If there's a system crash, what if you could predict how long it's going to take to get the system back up? Or predict if you do an acquisition and add this much volume to the data, what will be the impact? And do you need to buy hardware for that to do it? So as opposed to just making pure guesses, or we'll just put the data in and guess, have real metrics and have a high degree of confidence in making those decisions before they happen. We're going to talk about how to do this. We've discussed the challenges. We've discussed what if. How do we get there? And we're going to start with the basics and work our way to advanced techniques. The first thing is the design of the system. You have to build support in the design of the system. Define clear user windows. When is the user community going to be in the JDA system? What are going to be the maintenance windows? Is IT only going to be able to be in the system at 8 p.m. at night to 2 a.m. on Saturday morning? And is that optimal? Do we want to do very patch changes, very intricate work late at night on a Saturday, or is there an opportunity to move that to a Saturday morning where someone might be fresh? So again, doing that and designing that and having the proper discussions on Windows as opposed to the week of go live or after go live. I don't know if we want the system up at 7 or 10. Huge differences, and so planning that in. Your archive strategy. What is the real business need to keep data? Does historical sales need to be stored in JDA beyond 2 to 3 years? Is it statistically relevant? These are kind of decisions that if you don't make will continue to grow the database and degrade performance over time. So during the design phase, have very candid discussions in your data mapping meetings on how long you need to retain data in the system. The time not to make the decision is not when you run out of disk space after go live. So it's, again, planning this into your design and then developing a proper backup and recovery strategy, getting it signed off by the business. So in the event you do have a critical error, there's no confusion. It's been tested. The timeline to get the system up, everyone's aware. And it gives, again, a high degree of confidence in both the business and the technology team that they know what's going to happen. They've already planned it out. They've already, in the design for the project, have gone through and made those changes. So again, with our simple techniques, again, sound simple, building the framework, gathering metrics is critical. Determining, and when I say it sounds simple, too often, I would say 95% of clients I go to do not have this metrics. Hey, our system's not performing. Ken, we'd love for you to come in and help us out. Well, I have no idea of their table growth over time. Nobody took a snapshot of it. Their script performance. Well, I know the script performed bad last week, but I had no idea how the script performed 6 months ago. So I don't have all the data to make real decisions. I only know at this point in time. I don't know if their business evolved in the past year beyond asking some questions. And the ability, it's not that the data couldn't be obtained through database backups and weeks of time to restore these backups and trying to gather it, but it's not readily available. So the simple technique here is to gather the metrics on tables, on growth, script performance, your script types, categorizing it, so we can determine the trends and predict performance in the future. So once you have all the metrics that you need, the next step is to perform the analysis. Here at Spinnaker, we're using advanced tools such as the Germain ATM tool and other tools to gather this data as quickly as possible and start the analysis and to get a holistic view. Once we have all that data, we can gather it quickly with the tools. Again, make an actionable list. We're all constrained by time, competing tasks, but are we working on the right task? So making that task list, linking it, and working with our business partners, what is the biggest impact? If the system's not up at 7, is that the most critical impact, or is the fact that you don't have this report is killing our inventory levels because you don't have visibility? So again, ranking that work and doing what you need to keep up with the business. The business is always going to be one step ahead and in the driver's seat, but having them help you gather the not gather the metrics, but rank those tasks. The next step, for gathering the matrix, doing the analysis, starting the work, is to keeping the system performing optimally, is developing the habits to keep the system running. Too often I see places just put their JDA and their supply chain systems on auto support. Well, when it breaks, we'll get to it. If it doesn't break, it must be okay. And what ends up happening is it breaks, and then you have to bring in a consultant, or it's a big rush and a disaster to try to just put a Band-Aid on. There is no task list. So what I find is doing the necessary routine maintenance on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually basis. You know, on a daily basis, checking that all the data got in. And if it didn't get in, it goes to an invalid data table, working with the business before it becomes a problem. It might start out with one particular item not get in the system and continue to grow. So it's not the time, once it starts impacting forecast accuracy, to become a problem. It's in the table every day. It should be a standard process to look at this invalid data not loading every day. On a weekly basis, looking at your trending to make sure that your uptime, there's no bad trends happening. You're not seeing a bunch of out of stocks. You're not seeing scripts run continually longer every single day. Monthly, you're going into some of the deeper log files and making sure something's not awry in there. For instance, there might be a log about a memory leak happening in JDA, but it's not to the point of causing a Java heap dump or a horrible crash. But again, you're looking at that to seeing the symptoms before it becomes a major problem. And then quarterly, online performance. I'm sure most technology folks in the call have received that ticket. The screen is performing slow. Okay, well, what is slow? Oh, it's running in 9 seconds. Well, what did it run before? Well, we don't know. It was running faster. It's not really a whole lot to go on. However, having metrics, following a methodology of building an online baseline of knowing the top 15, 20 screens perform in this amount of time, you have metrics and you can run it and say in 6 months, yeah, it did run in 8 seconds and now it runs in 9. Is this really a ticket? Or if it did run in 8 seconds and now running in 50 seconds, you now have a baseline and some facts to say, wow, there really is a performance problem. I need to get the hardware team involved. I need to get other people involved. Something has changed in the past 3 months to really impact performance on the front end. And then annually, checking those overall trends to determine, hey, a business is growing, our items are increasing. Do we need to make a hardware purchase? So looking at those larger term trends to make strategic decisions. So those are some of the simple techniques. Now, I alluded to earlier, we have advanced tools that we use, like the Germain software APM, and tools that we use to gather this metric. So not only gather it, but we have tools to bring it all together and to make use of our limited time. So you can perform more checks in one day. And again, using the same philosophy, finding it's better to prevent a problem than have to deal with it when it crashes the system. So it's all about prevention. Now, the Germain software APM tool has 5 main dashboards. It has an executive dashboard with high-level KPIs. So when you bring up that dashboard, you're going to be able to see the overall efficiency of the system. For example, did your batch schedules, did your system come up on time? And if it did not come on time, it's going to be in a bold color. It did not show up on time, and you can immediately start looking at it. You have other dashboards, the batch summary, where you can start digging in the details. Let's go ahead and start looking at some graphics here. The executive dashboard. So here we'll look at the example I was just giving about the daily batch start time. Here we're showing 2 weeks of the system running, and we see 3 yellow bars. And the black line there indicates the SLA that we have to meet to have the system up on time for the users. So here I see 2 yellow bars above the time where we did not meet the SLA, and the third one looks like it's right at the line, so we just reached the cusp of the window to have the system up. So immediately, the first screen you log into, no queries, no SQL, you can log in and see this. Okay, how do I take action on that? So what you can do is in the next dashboard, the batch summary, you can actually drill down to the script level and determine what script is running wrong. Excellent. Okay, now the question is, why did the script run wrong? So then you're able to look at other dashboards and to check things like the size of the table. Did you add more? Were more sourcing records added? Were more items added last night? Did you have an influx of history that was loaded? Did the users add overrides? Was there a fundamental change in the data? What was the CPU usage last night? Was it different from other nights? Was there some other process running? So you're able to go to other screens and see what was going on in the system, determine that root cause in a few clicks. And that is very powerful. And another dashboard, we're able to see long-term metrics. So again, I talked about kind of the day-to-day routine maintenance, the weekly maintenance, the quarterly. But the annual maintenance, when you're looking at JDA, how is it performing over the year? One of my top 10 running jobs. You know, we have an initiative to, we know we're going to acquire business units. We're going to get more out of the JDA system. So one of my top 10 run jobs, where is the system spending most of its time? What tables are growing the most over this year and don't seem to be shrinking? And is there anything we can do about it? You have a dashboard to look at this metrics over the year and basically determine your top 10 problems, top 10 opportunities for fixing this system. So again, very powerful metrics that you have summarized to do these initiatives. Now I'd like to talk about a few examples here of what I've seen. One customer worked with had a system that would randomly come up. I came in the client and the system would come up in between 8 a.m. or noon every day. And the approach that they had taken to solve it was, we'll keep pushing buttons, we'll keep trying to just fix this script or fix that one, and hopefully, you know, we'll push enough buttons, the system will stabilize. I like to refer it to as the, if you ever watch kids playing soccer, if you watch little kids play soccer, they all run after the soccer ball. Nobody seems to stay in their position. It's not a real strategy, a metrics, a task list. So what I was able to do and work with the client is gather the metrics that we need to really determine the problems. So we gathered the metrics, we built a task list, and work with the business on saying what's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. Just because something might solve all the problems, but if it takes two months to implement, we might not get enough buy-in to fix it. So again, building that list and determine what can we get some quick wins on. And we're able to do that, again, by following these simple techniques and then using some of these tools to have that. And again, what we're able to do is get that uptime not only above, you know, the 8 a.m. it's needed, but even go beyond that to give a proper cushion. So even in the event there was a critical error in the batch, we're able to have the support team go in, make adjustments, finish the rest of the system, and still have it up on time. Or even if there was a critical error and that system wasn't going to be on time, because the metrics was in there, not only could they fix the issue, but to communicate into the business, the system will be up in between these time ranges. So again, it changed it from a random performance to very stable. Another usage of this methodology and tools is organizational efficiency. Again, I believe I was talking about the example of having a technology maintenance window in between 8 at night to midnight. Now, I personally not a big fan of it because normally at that time I do some of my worst work. I'm normally pretty tired. I'm prone to mistakes. Or if I actually do need to reach out to someone else or another team, they tend to A, not to be available, or it's hard to contact someone at midnight on a Saturday to get them to work. However, there was a business demand to say the system has to be available all day Saturday. We absolutely have users going in all the time. Well, with the proper metrics being captured, we were able to determine no one logged in the system for 4 months on a Saturday. And then we discuss about, hey, can we shrink the window on Saturday from, let's say, 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and then after 1 o'clock, the technology pieces for routine maintenance to keep the system up and running like we'd like to do. And again, it was a factual discussion. It just wasn't simple subjective discussions. It was, here's the facts. No one's logged in 3 to 6 months. And we're able to drive change for the organization. And again, to make everyone more efficient. all of a sudden, when we had patches put in and changes put in on weekends, surprise, surprise, we had less errors. But again, it was done by planning. It was done by using these tools and having very candid discussions based on fact. All right, that completes my portion. I'd like to turn it over to Yannick to talk more about the Germain piece.
Thanks, Ken. Hi, everyone. In fact, trending statistics is definitely critical when it comes to understanding the overall performance of applications, JDA and all. We've worked with customers, like some of these logos you see on these slides. There are Pepsi Cola and Nestle that had very similar challenges to what JDA customers' challenges are. They had, in most cases, many software solutions, applications integrated that were mission-critical applications. Business relied on these applications to perform business processes and so on. And the other challenges that all these customers actually have been having is the big data realm, where like the amount of business data keeps on increasing, the amount of technical data increase in the back end, and all this needs to be analyzed nearly real time. And it's not an easy thing to do when the scale of the environment keeps on increasing. So these customers, they selected Germain APM as their global performance management solution. And the idea for them was to have one single performance platform to monitor all the mission-critical applications that they have, and to monitor the underlying infrastructure and help them. The number one issue, the number one reason why they would involve us is the capability. Germain APM is able to help them identify root cause of performance issues that affect the speed or the availability of their applications. And the root cause analysis help them identify the lines of code in the applications, or the SQL statements from the database that can be responsible for slowdown of their application. Another thing that these customers wanted us, expected from our technology, was the correlation capabilities. There is Germain APM collects statistics from many different data sources. So it collects data from the user browser. So if you have users logging on to an HTML user interface, there is analytics that's collected right from within the user browser, and that gets correlated with data that transit on the network. So all the network requests and responses, HTTP, SOAP, are also collected by the Germain APM solution. The other data sources that I guess Germain APM collects data from are application logs, database contents, and all these different data sources are eventually the data gets aggregated, correlated, and presented on a dashboard that helps you understand the 360-degree view of your of the performance of your applications. Because big data is a problem, and the scalability, the integration, complexity keeps on evolving, they needed Germain APM to be flexible, so they could configure this platform in pretty much any way they want on a daily basis. So to add any analytics, any monitoring capabilities, or to automate, automate the execution of scripts, SQL scripting, or Perl scripting, or shell scripting. So that's also one of the reasons why they selected Germain APM. On this slide, you actually so this just introduces you some of the dashboard that have been offered to these customers, and really the the critical need that all these customers had was to be able to get an end-to-end view of the performance of their applications, starting at the business impact. They have users experiencing problems, or business processes like the inventory business process, the forecasting business process, being able to monitor those and understand if there are any slowdown or failure of these business processes at the high level first, and then be able to drill down onto those business issues, those slow business processes, all the way down to the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem can be a network switch, a user's desktop experiencing some issues, if it's a user-related problem. It can be an application, a JDA transactions running on a WebLogic server that would be at the root cause of the performance issue. It could be a configuration change on your operating system layer, in the WebSphere layer, that would actually break the JDA performance or affect the JDA performance. You see that in the middle right corner here, where we say audit security pretty much helps you understand the configuration changes that have been performed for the JDA software here in that case. And then deep dive, it helps you understand the application code level related problems. So if there are any configuration, any scripting written within your applications, and you would want to know, and that scripting is at the root cause of the performance issue, then it also helps you identify these kind of problems. So this 360-degree view that's configurable is really what customers have been after, and this is the trend today is using this type of end-to-end analysis capabilities and dashboard in a big data environment. And so we are using a lot of technologies to help us scale. Some of these customers have used Germain APM and analyze like hundreds of millions of what we call data points or analytics a day. So and that can be anything from a user click that gets recorded and stored within the Germain data mart, down to a network HTTP request or a SQL statement or an application, a JDA transactions, and so on. So depending on the scale that gets collected and stored within the Germain data mart, customers either use the structured or unstructured data sources that we offer with these solutions. So we use technologies like the typical Oracle database, SQL Server technologies, but we can also use things like MemSQL, Druid, that are like unstructured big data solutions. If for customers that have like terabyte, petabyte of information that need to be analyzed. So I think I've pretty much covered in a nutshell the capabilities that are offered as part of Germain APM, and we've been fortunate working with Spinnaker, that is a JDA implementation expert, the JDA implementation expert, and that has within a few weeks helped us configure Germain APM to make it to be able to monitor the performance of the JDA install end to end, and looking forward to working with the Spinnaker team. So I think at this point I'll open it to for questions. If anybody in the room wants to ask Ken or myself any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Yannick. We did get a couple questions submitted, and so I want to, first one will be for Ken Pore. Ken, the question that came through is, what is the most common problem that you find in JDA systems when you're performing an assessment?
I would say lack of consistency in custom coding, lack of standardization in terms of table names and removing relevant data, and a lack of metrics being captured to put together a story of what happened to a system over time.
And of those three most common ones, which one do you think is most impactful to their businesses?
The lack of metrics being captured.
At the end of the day, right, metrics that matter are very important. So, thanks for that insight. Yannick, we've got a question I think you should be able to field. It's, how long does it take to get Germain APM installed? And, even though you're the founder of the company, talk about how flexible you feel the software is.
So it's, last week we completed a proof of concept at American Airlines, and it took us 1.5 days to get the technology installed and monitored a number of their mission critical applications. So that's, it did take American Airlines a whole month to get the infrastructure ready, so making sure that they have the set of machines, they have the network ports, all the security points available, access to the applications at all the layers of the application, so the JDA web server, the WebLogic server, the logs, the database, and so on. But so, that may take a few days to a month, depending on the IT organizations. Installing 1.5 days. Then the flexibility of the product is nearly unlimited. So we've got customers, once Germain APM is installed, customers are able to create their own analytics within, depending on the complexity of the analytics, within minutes or within hours. They can add on new monitoring points. They can create their own dashboard. They can create their own automation. So if they want to automate the execution of shell script or Perl script, it is something that they can do within clicks. The wizards are offered to help perform that configuration, but if those wizards are not sophisticated enough, we have a rule editor that is a mix of scripting language and regular expressions, as we call them regex, that allows like the hardcore IT engineer configure Germain APM in pretty much any way they want to do any kind of analytics. So that's for the flexibility part. Now the big data part, I briefly touched upon that as well earlier. Depending on the scale, the amount of data that the customers will require Germain APM to monitor, they either use Germain APM with a structured database technology like Oracle database server or SQL Server or MySQL or DB2. But the other option is if we're talking about big data and hundreds of millions of data points that need to be analyzed, collected every day, then in that case, we move away from the structured database technology and we use things like MemSQL, Druid, where we can basically scale the environment to terabytes or petabytes of information.
Excellent. In the scenario that you present us with, where it's about a month-long install, it sounded like a lot of that was really related to, from a hardware perspective more than anything. As far as user training goes, were they ahead of schedule as far as the training goes, or did that also take the full month?
Training, typically, once the product is installed, customers will, it's a matter of minutes for them to pick it up and to understand how things are configured. On the administration and configuration part, it depends on how complex because it is unlimited. There's a lot of things that can be learned So most people, they just need like a few hours of training at the very beginning, and then eventually they're good to go. Now the administrators that would want to do, that would want to add analytics and complex analytics, so it may take between a few days to a week to really understand the configuration capabilities of the tool and how far they can go with it.
Excellent. And I think we'll close out, Ken, with a question for you that kind of dovetails off of what Yannick was just talking about. You know, since it's his baby, I can't really ask him this directly. But for you, what do you think the biggest advantages are of using, you know, advanced tools, whether it's a Germain software package or just overall through your experience? You know, what are some of those advantages?
It's going to help standardization of metrics. So, I mean, some clients, they can do perform some of the techniques listed, but it's ad hoc queries, and then if someone leaves, they kind of lose it. So kind of bringing all the metrics together in one graphical form really helps out. And if you're missing something, it's pretty relevant. Hey, I don't have the CPU, but it'd be great if I had the CPU utilization here available to me. The next thing you know, you gather that metrics and build it in. So it allows for the standardization. And the second thing is just I mentioned it earlier, was just the speed of finding problems. So graphically, you can just look at color coding and say, wow, there's the problem. So it really sticks out. So just the speed, the ability to having all that metrics in one place to get to the root cause. So you can spend more time not finding the problem, but addressing it.
And there is one thing that I want to add to that actually Spinnaker has will eventually start using as well. A lot of people, so the technology we've been talking about here is the APM technology. So that's, that allows you to monitor your JDA application 24/7. But then there is another technology that helps DevOps processes. It's basically what we call the CRT tool that helps developer identify bad scripting, like any line of scripting customization built into JDA that are known to cause performance issues, could very well be resolved within the development phase before you deploy your JDA customization to production. And that is addressed with a second technology that most of our customers have adopted clearly to be more proactive and help them solve problems that are typically typical known problems that could be very easily avoided by developers that sometimes developers tend to forget during a development phase.
Excellent closing statement. Thank you, Yannick. So this will be the conclusion of our webinar, but it looks like the takeaways definitely are, if you want to move towards a better management of your JDA environment, utilizing some sort of advanced tool set like one offered by Germain in the hands of an expert like a Ken Pori from Spinnaker will get you to that next level. So we want to say thank you for joining us today. Again, if you have follow-up questions, you can relay those to Grant when he follows up with you directly after the webinar. But for now, that will conclude it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.